Hello everyone. After Tuesday's class, a couple of you guys came up to me and asked me to clarify the difference between anchor point and position transformations. I'm going to try to do so through this short video. If you notice, I have created a composition and I have imported a piece of media into my project window. I'm going to drag that media into the composition so it becomes a layer within that composition. Once inside the composition, and if I have selected that layer, I'll notice that I have icons that I can work with, little reference points. Right smack in the center of that layer, I see something that looks like a little target, and that is my anchor point reference. This anchor point is the point of reference from which any transformation that I apply to that layer will take effect. So if I rotate or if I scale, those values will change based on the position of that anchor point. So for example, I am going to select the layer once again, and I'm going to press the R key on the keyboard to open up its rotation transformation values. Then I am going to press on the stopwatch to create the original keyframe. Remember, you only need to press this once. Once you press it, it creates a keyframe for you, and that becomes the point of reference for any change that you apply to the value for that transformation within the layer. So if I go further downstream, say to the 2-second mark, and I enter a value of 1 rotation and I hit return, I will create a new keyframe for that particular point with a value of 1 rotation, which means between the 0 mark and the 2-second mark, I should have 1 rotation. Let me scrub the video, and it does so. If I were to click on that stopwatch once again, once I have created keyframes, they will disappear, and that's not what I want unless that's what you intend to do. Once I have applied these transformation values, notice that they are all based on that specific anchor point. What that means is that any change I apply will be referenced to that point within the layer. However, I notice that there's a value called anchor point itself. This anchor point, it's the distance between that center of the layer and the upper left-hand corner of the layer. That is what the anchor point is. So this anchor point at 150 by 100 is telling me that the anchor point is 150 pixels to the right of that corner and 100 pixels down from that corner. If I select the same layer and I press the P key, notice that the position values are different. And that is because position is referencing the position of that anchor point to the upper left-hand corner of my composition. By the way, the 0, point of any composition is its upper left-hand corner. So the position transformation, the values for position are based on that position of the upper left-hand corner of the composition. Right now, my layer resides at 320 by 180 distance from that upper left-hand corner. If I press anchor again, press the A key for anchor, I see that those values change. Now, these values are specific to that layer. And what I mean by that is that if I change these values, they will push my anchor point to the right or left or up or down based on the position of the layer. And what that means is it's affecting the layer and the layer only, not the layer with reference to the composition. This is perhaps best explained if I double click on the layer to open up its layer window. Let me go ahead and double click it, and it opens up its layer window. Notice that I see the anchor point in this layer as well. If I change the anchor point value, let's say on the x-axis, and I push it to the right, you will notice that the anchor point moves to the right. If I decrease its value, it will move to the left. Let me go ahead and increase it to place it right around here. That anchor point reference, it's telling me that anything that I have done to that layer will still be affected from that anchor point. But this visual would have been moved either to the right or to the left. Now, on looking at this reference, on looking at the layer itself, if my anchor point is it's what I referenced from within the composition, that means that that visual has moved to the left. Let me go back to my composition window and take a look. It has moved to the left with reference to the anchor point. Now, you might ask yourselves, why isn't the anchor point changing? If I'm changing the value of the anchor point, why isn't the anchor point changing? And that is because the anchor point is the point of reference of that layer to the composition itself. When I change the anchor point itself, I am changing its value with reference to the layer, not to the composition. So that basically allows me to offset the visual content of any layer. So if I take a look at this and I scrub the video, notice that my rotation still takes effect based on the position of that anchor point. But the anchor point itself has been moved. I don't have to open up my layer window every time I change my anchor point if I understand this concept. Notice that anchor point is also mobile by hand. I can go ahead and click on it and move it once I am inside the layer window. And its position still doesn't change with reference to the composition window. I hope that this has clarified the concept. If you have any other questions, go ahead and email me and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye.